report to said meeting and act thereon or take any other action relative thereto. I believe this is my motion, right, Robert? I move that the annual reports as contained in the annual town report for the year be accepted as printed. And the advisory.
Advisory committee recommends favorable action.
This requires a majority vote to accept the reports. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Article 2. I'm gonna go. Yep, I got it. Article 2. Carol, as soon as I read the question, then I'm gonna go to you, okay? Article 2 is see if the town will vote to fix the salary and compensation of all elected officers of the town as provided for by the general laws, chapter 41, section 108, and to raise and appropriate the necessary sums to cover same, and to raise money and make appropriations to defray the expenses of the town for the period July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, or take any other action relative thereto. Before we get into the budget, the advisory committee always makes a presentation, does their best to educate us all and kind of give you a perspective on where we are and where we're going. Carol?
Thanks, Rick. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Carol Fitzgerald. I'm co-chair of the advisory committee. Can everybody hear me? It's right behind me, so it sounds a little funny from my perspective. Just wanted to make sure you all knew who was on the advisory committee. With me on the table here is Doug Boyd. He's the co-chair. Paul Gagnon-Raducci, Kathy Castellano, and Heather Turcott. So just wanted to give you a little bit of a lay of the land here before we get rolling into the budget. The advisory committee has been meeting pretty much weekly since January to meet with departments and to go over their different budgets. We asked them this year to submit a level service budget to ensure we could continue to provide the quality and variety of services that the town delivers to its citizens. And the departments did a great job of providing all the information that we needed, and we're very diligent in bringing us thoughtful and prudent budgets. We also worked collaboratively with the town treasurer, the accountant, and the board of selectmen throughout our budget process. And in fact, the treasurer and the town accountant attended nearly every advisory meeting and provided invaluable insight and perspective on the town's finances and operations. And we really want to thank them for all of their time and their energy with us. I wanted to give you just a few account balances as we get rolling. You'll hear about these accounts in some of in the budget or in the articles. Our stabilization account right now has a balance of $1,262,885.29. The community preservation account has $371,649.81. And the conservation trust account has $19,605.90. We're down to the penny there. The total budget expenditures that we're recommending tonight are $14,859,458. The advisory committee supports all the lines that are identified in the budget after spending a lot of time to understand the needs of the department. And as I stated earlier, we met with all of the departments and the board on multiple occasions throughout the last few months. And both Doug and I also participated in the school committee's budget subcommittee, along with our representative Laura Ryan, in order to ensure that the school budget was fair and equitable. And this year, the town's assessment is actually declining, due in large part to the shift in overall enrollment numbers. So it also, in terms of the overall budget figures, this year includes a significant adjustment related to the non-bargain town employees based on our ongoing efforts to improve salaries and to ensure that the town is paying salaries that keep up with the external markets. You may be aware that last several years we've lost some town employees to concerns over salaries in other communities. So the town recently had these positions reviewed by an independent compensation professional with the Collins Center for Public Management out of UMass Boston. The Board of Selectmen commissioned that study. And the Collins group gathered information from the various departments and employees, and reviewed job descriptions. And then they made recommendations to assign different salary grades for the roles and made a recommendation for pay rates within those grades. And they also developed a step chart for the town that we could use for progression over some time. And the Board of Selectmen, at one of their meetings, accepted the Collins recommendations without exception and determined that each step would equate to 2 years of service. What we also did is, based on the timing of that study, that was basically last year's figures. So the Board of Selectmen and the Advisory Committee also wanted to apply a 1.5% cost of living adjustment. We thought that was reasonable for the coming year. So you'll see all of that reflected in the budget tonight that we'll review. In some cases, there was a significant adjustment for some people to get up to that market rate that you'll know, and others require really little to no adjustment. So you'll see some variation in the amounts of increases in the salary lines. It's because of the Collins adjustments that there's not a standard across the board. Everyone got a 2.5% increase. You'll see the differential based on the compensation study. And as you can imagine, with a project like this, there are some departments that may be more satisfied with the outcome of that than others. But our budget recommendations do follow the Collins recommendations that the board adopted and the decision we made around the step increases. There is an internal process for departments to go through with the Board of Selectmen to have Collins look at a particular position or a recommended salary. The goal of the project is really to standardize the process for salary review and eliminate any of the distortion that can occur when one employee or one department is able to more successfully advocate for a particular rate. So we really needed a more objective and fair process for determining the competitive rates, and the Collins study did that for us. So we're pleased that we have that resource and that tool to use now. Also, you'll note that the police salaries have remained the same in the budget this year, based on 2 issues. One is that the police salaries are currently in negotiation, so we don't have final numbers on those. We expect to have those for the fall. And we also kept the dispatch salaries in the budget, as that transition is not finalized yet. We do anticipate there will be a net savings on the dispatch transition to be about $300,000. The total budget increase this year is $339,000 and some change. It's really largely driven by 3 component parts. One is $103,000 increase in county retirement, which is mandatory. About $86,000 of the adjustment in the non-bargain salaries that I talked about with the Collins report. And we put $100,000 back into our saving account that we had removed last year. So if we realize that dispatch savings of nearly $300,000, our budget increase will be pretty flat this year. And we think that that's a pretty significant achievement in this fiscal environment. So, and finally, as is typical of our process at the annual town meeting, we do anticipate deferring the articles relative to any transfer to stabilization or any reduction in the tax rate until our fall town meeting. At that time, we'll have a better sense of our free cash available from the current fiscal year that can be used for that purpose. But we can also factor in some decisions about payments for capital items, and there'll be a lot more known in the fall for us to make those decisions. The Board of Selectmen, the treasurer, the accountant, and advisor will all work together to make those determinations to ensure that we can prudently finance capital items and stabilize any potential tax increases to the best of our ability at that time. So with that, I'm going to make a motion on the budget. So, Mr. Moderator, I move that the sums of money shown in the column entitled Fiscal 2022 draft recommendations of the supplementary report and recommendations of the advisory committee be raised and appropriated for the specific purposes designated and that the same be expended only for such purposes, each number being considered a separate appropriation, and that the town raise and appropriate such sums as may be required to defray said charges for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022.
Does the advisory committee have a recommend? Does the advisory have a second? Does the advisory have a recommendation on this motion?
We recommend favorable action.
And we will take the vote at the end of the budget. Just one last housekeeping note. I failed to mention this previously. The meeting tonight is being recorded. So any public meeting that's being recorded, you're obliged to make the residents aware. So the meeting tonight is being recorded. Yeah. We have a question. Go ahead.
I got a general question.
Go ahead.
For the salaries, are we gonna go to 5 days a week, all being open with a late night?
So let's do this. We're gonna take the budget. And if you have a question with regard to a specific department, we'll take it. Is your question with regard to a specific department or is it?
It's the overall study that they were talking about.
Okay,
Building town hall being open for all those positions 5 days a week. Or was that study only for 4 days?
okay, so the answer back is that is not for an increase in hour. It is only measuring the position as they are currently operated. Okay? All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna read the lines, but not the numbers, except for the total at the breaks where you see the natural breaks. I'll read the total. At that point, I'll scan the room. If you have any questions during or after each of those breaks, please let me know. Hopefully this will expedite things, but it'll also give everybody a chance to see the questions and raise any questions if they have them. So with that, are we set? Line item 1, accountant, 1.1, salary, 1.2, assistant, 1.3, expenses, 1.4, software. Total accountant, amount requested, $74,358. Amount recommended, $74,358. Advisory committee, line 2.1, clerical, line 2.2, expenses. Total advisory, $5,763 requested, $5,763 recommended. 3.0, appeals, 3.1, clerical, 3.2, expenses. Total appeals requested 6,749, recommended 6,749. Board of Assessors, line item 4. 4.1, salaries. 4.2, principal assessor. 4.2.2, clerical. 4.3, expenses. 4.5, software. 4.6, mapping maintenance. 4.7, utility valuations. Total assessors, $119,715 requested, and the same amount is recommended. Line item 5.0, 5.1, code and general enforcement. 5.2, inspector. 5.3, clerical. 5.4, inspector's expense. 5.5, office expense. Total building department. The amount requested is $118,627. The amount recommended is the same. Line item 6.0, county retirement. The amount requested is $706,975. The amount recommended is $706,975. Any questions so far? I see one. Mr. Matthews.
Moderator, I've got a question on the county retirement. Is that increase due to the ongoing problems in that county retirement system? Meaning the people and the personnel and the spent money that we've been reading about.
Before we turn to the treasurer to answer that, could I just remind everybody, this is my fault on the housekeeping, or whoever we turn to answer the question. Please remember to state your name and your address for the record.
John Matthews, 28 North Munson Road.
All right, who's going to tackle the answer?
The answer is no. For a long period of time, all the county retirement systems in Massachusetts were not funded properly. And in 2008, the legislature passed a bill which required all the towns to increase their funding for the unfunded liability. So each year we're required to raise our assessment by 8% until 2035, I believe, is the year when the county investments passed. The current situation with the Hampden County Retirement Board is totally different. It's a misappropriation of funds and that type of thing. And it's being investigated by the Attorney General and the Ethics Commission. And of course, we've been very active trying to move the people off the board. We've succeeded with one, the other one's hanging on. But that money you'll see each year will continue to go. And it's based upon two things: the 8% required each year, plus it's based on the number of employees we have and the salaries each year.
Any other questions? Where are we?
That for that 55 Highland Circle, Don, that's not 8%.
17, that's 17%. 16 something.
But that's a 2-year investment.
So the reason that adjustment is because of salary increase that we give in the past, the hiring we've done in the past, and of course, the other 8% is based on our annual increase 8%. They get 8% each year. If we hire more people, the rate salaries, as part of the retirement, and that has to go with it. I think it's 31%. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said, Don, but the rate at which they charge us goes up by 8%. The basis is the full-time salaries, which usually goes up about 2.5%, so that compounds. So that's why you're seeing a bit of a raise on there. And it changes in what we have in full-time salary, people in the pension system is that we do an audit every September 30th, and we run the payroll, it goes forward. For instance, if we have moving dispatch is 5 full-time pension positions, we might actually see a flat year next year if that's what goes through as possible. None of the part-timers affect this number at all. The rate right now is about 32% of the full-timer salary. It's going to by 20, 35 or 37 or whatever. Before it peaks, it's going to hit 62%. And then the next year, once they're finally caught up, it'll go back down to 11%.
And just one other point I have to make too is that the town employees who participate in the system are also paying into the system, which
About
about
11%.
11% of their salary goes to the retirement as well.
Everybody hearing the questions and answers okay? Any other questions? Go ahead. If you can't hear, then we can have you come forward, so. Yeah, why don't you? Because it sounds like your voice may not carry. You can use minor ears, Carol, I don't care.
I just have a question.
Louder. Speak up.
I don't know.
On the fiscal 2020 expenditures, I can tell that notice that in several categories, they're significantly lower in 2020. Is that due to reduced hours or, I mean, as compared to what we have in
Which question are you looking at?
I'm looking at accounting, looking at advisory,
Okay,
I'm
so,
looking at board of assessors.
all right, so I'm sorry, I really didn't pick it up. So, okay, so we're going back and we're gonna look at those. And your question is again?
Like, well, I'm noticing that there's a trend here that a lot of the expenditures of 2020 are significantly lower than for 2022. And I'm asking, is that because of reduced hours or because?
So,
of some other
Carol, do you want to take that?
Repeat the question, is that?
Right, so-
Her question is related to the difference between fiscal 2020 expended versus the current recommendation and why there's such a significant difference. So we've been trying to improve salaries over time. It's hard for me to know from 2 years ago what happened, but there's been salary increases. And in some departments, there's been hour increases, but I can't tell you off the top of my head which ones, but yeah, from two years ago, there's been activity.
Is there a line item that's in question or just overall?
If I interpret it correctly, the question really centered around each of the totals for the department, but that actually backtracked into the department itself, and probably because of the Collins study and some of the other work that Carol mentioned when we started the meeting. You feel like that's right? Dick?
If I may, the other thing is when you're looking at the 2020 number, that's the amount that was actually spent rather than what was appropriated. So there's lots of times when someone will ask for $7,000 in expenses and nothing breaks and they only have to pay $3,500. So appropriations are the maximum number. And if we're looking back at that 2-year-old number, that's what was actually spent. So that would often be much lower than what was appropriated. Because people manage their departments well and don't spend all the money.
So if you all heard the answer, it makes sense as to where we are. We good so far? Okay. Moving on. Line 7, insurance, property, 7.1, property and liability, 7.2, employee benefits, 7.3, unemployment compensation, 7.4, longevity. Total insurance, $449,600 requested, $449,600 recommended. Line item 8, law and claims, that's our town council and other legal affairs. Requested $65,000, recommended $65,000. Moderator, 9.1. Bob, nothing? Wow, as soon as you get off the floor, you got nothing. Moderator, salary, 9.1, 9.2 expenses, total moderator, $100 requested, $100 recommended. Planning board, line item 10, 10.2 clerical, 10.3 expenses, total planning board, $29,477 requested, $29,477 recommended. 11, line item 11, registrars, board of voters, 11.1 salaries, 11.2 election expenses, 11.3 street lists, total registrars, 8,800 requested, $8,800 recommended. Line item 12, selectmen, 12.1 salaries, 12.2 administrative assistant, 12.4 expenses, 12.5 legal advertising, 12.6 mapping maintenance, 12.7 temporary help, 12.8 stormwater management. Total selectmen, $134,184 requested, $134,335 recommended. Where are we? By all means. Okay, so hold on a sec. Yep. We'll get a comment. It's Robin Warner, Scannick Road, and does anybody have an answer to the question? Gary?
Gary Wayner, 53 Mill Road. The selectmen manage the stormwater regulations under the bylaw, which you'll see tonight, which we're requesting an amendment to the administration, total administration under the selectmen. And so enforcement and bylaw will fall under the selectmen, so they manage the selectmen.
Okay, any other questions? We good? Okay. Line item 13, tax collector, 13.1, salary, 13.2 is clerical, 13.3 expenses, 13.4 computer maintenance, 13.5 tax title work. Total amount for total tax collector, $76,860 requested, $76,860 recommended. Town clerk, line item 14.1, salary, 14.2 is clerical, 14.3 is record clerk, 14.3, again, looks like we've got a double, it's probably a typo. 14.3 is expenses, 14.4 is town publications. Total town clerk, $81,462 requested, $81,462 recommended. Town report, $3,000 requested, the same amount is recommended. Treasurer, line item 16, 16.1, salary, 16.2, clerical, 16.3, expenses, 16.4 is certifying notes, 16.5 is interest on loans, short term, 16.6, tax title work, 16.7 is payroll service, 16.10 is records management. Total treasurer, $82,135 requested, $82,135 recommended. Line item 17.0, veterans benefits, $20,000 is requested and recommended. 19, town administrator, $87,500 is recommended, is requested, and $87,500 is recommended. Total general government, $2,070,305 requested, $2,070,456 is recommended. Any questions? All right, we're going
Yeah.
over here. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, right back to Steel 32 Baldwin Drive. Line item 4.7, utility valuations. We have a line item expenditure. What is that?
He's gone back to page 1, under assessors, utility valuations.
Hi, I'm Dr. Chairman of the Board of Assessors. That's a new department, revenue department that just showed up, requiring us to assess the utility valuation by hiring someone to do that. That's the part. New requirement.
So in essence, it's a state mandate.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Unfunded, mostly. There seems to be a pattern.
Added to the list.
Yeah. Anything the state does under the form of a mandate is typically followed by the word unfunded. Are we good to go? Oh, I see another one, Jim.
Jim Smith, 234 Glendale Road. Rick, as I was going through this, the requested recommended seem to be all the same. Yet the bottom line, there's a minor dollar difference. So
I noted that, and there's, I think it's in the selectmen, it's actually different, and it carries over.
So, Jim, the difference is that the Board of Selectmen did not add any increase for themselves in their stipend that they received, and the advisory committee wanted to include that. That's the small difference.
I was gonna say, it's one line that caused it in that section. I think you're gonna see it one more time. Okay. So now we're on to general town services. Line item 20, Academy Hall maintenance, $4,500 requested, $4,500 recommended. Line item 21, cemetery commission, 21.1 clerical, 21.2 expenses, 21.3 maintenance, 21.4 computer maintenance. Total cemetery commission, $36,801 requested, $36,801 recommended. Line item 22. 22 is Conservation Commission, 22.1 clerical, 22.2 expenses. I got that right, 22.1 and 22.2. Total Conservation Commission, $24,115 requested, $24,115 recommended. Yes, sir.
all right, 10-0 Second Drive, co-chair of the commission. I want to know why we are not getting the 34,000 as we originally requested. We cannot hire anybody at 23,000.
So the question that's coming from the Conservation Commission is they requested in the clerical line $34,006. That is not the number that was recommended. Does the advisory committee have an answer for that? If that's where it ended, if somebody else has the answer, I'm game. So.
Yeah, we're just looking at our sheets.
That's a 31%, it's 20-hour position.
So here it is,
What you
20
have,
hour.
what you may have is what our first, what the beginning, but that.
Ted,
not what the position-
Ted, hold on. I'm gonna ask you to bring the question through the moderator, and she was attempting to answer it. So the floor debate's not gonna go between the two of you, okay? All right, thank you. Go ahead, Carol.
So excuse me, while I'm hearing from other people, I don't think that we, it wasn't a, intent to do something nefarious here. So I think it's a 20-hour position, and the Collins study came in with a certain rate.
The number is, the salary rate is $2.08 more than the existing position pays, according to the college study. But the budget was for 20 hours. So that's where that number comes from. I don't know what the budget was on last year's appropriation for how many hours that job was supposed to be.
I guess the problem is we haven't had a permanent clerk for 2 years. We're trying to get someone permanent, but we're not gonna be able to do it.
I mean, the salary number is fairly solid, and it's a significant increase over what they're being paid now. I think your argument is how many hours is the job? And that's where you it's the process.
So at this stage, there's basically a couple of options. You could make a motion to alter the salary figure and have the town meeting vote on it. The second one, it sounds like, just kind of from some of the interplay, that there might be some homework to be done, and we could either proceed with this number and revisit it, or we could vote, we could move, not vote, move to modify it now. But it sounds like we've heard the answer. Is there anything more? Bonnie, Jeremy, please.
Yeah, hi. Well, I'm in the acting clerk right now. It's like a temporary part-time position because we haven't had a clerk in several years. And although I'm only putting in from 9 to 12 every day, that position could certainly be extended, the hours. It's just, I don't want to work any longer than 9 to 12 every day. So in order to get a full-time clerk, or whatever you want to call the position, or the conservation commission, I mean, the person is required to have some type of a background in wetland science, and know a lot of Wetland Protection Act, all the laws, bylaws, and everything that goes along with that. So that in order to find that type of person, I just feel that unless when that person is found and interviewed, and then the town decides to pay that person more money, I just think it's very difficult to find somebody to work full-time. And it is a full-time position, plus the clerk goes on all the site inspections, and the clerk is at all of the meetings, which now sometimes twice a month. So there is a lot of extra time involved with that.
Okay, so if I could just interrupt you for 1 second, because I have a sense that you folks have a different thought process with regard to the job. But before you go any further, I think the advisory committee has something they want to say.
I guess I just, from a process perspective, I think that I would rather have you guys go to the board to get your concerns understood. And if it's a Collins issue, we go to Collins, or you go to Collins. And either way, we have an opportunity to come back to fall town meeting if you think there's an adjustment, Collins wants to make an adjustment, and agree to that, or if there's an hour's adjustment, come back to fall town meeting to do that, instead of from the floor here. I think process where people, can understand the circumstances and understand what you're needing, and we can look at the budget sheets and we can do that together. That's my suggestion, is to hold off and wait, and we can resolve it at that point.
Does that, certainly that's not the answer you want to hear, but does it satisfy the point for now? Okay, fair enough. Line item 23, Transfer station, 23.2, monitoring testing, total transfer station, 25,000 requested, 25,000 recommended. Line item 24, school building repairs, $15,000 is the amount requested. It is also the amount recommended. Line item 26, library, 26.1, salaries, materials, books, $172,946 requested, $172,946 recommended. That's the number I have. Your name, please?
Monitor Randy Rennis, South Road.
Okay.
Is it a generally accepted accounting practice to group salaries, materials, and books in one line item, or do we typically spike those out? I know some of the other departments that cost like that.
If the treasurer wants to answer the question, fine, or I will.
There's two departments that are statutory required to have a single line item. There's the school department and the library. We have no control.
That's the answer. Line item 27, town events, $1,200 requested, $1,200 recommended. Office equipment, 29.1, acquisition, 29.2, maintenance, 29.3, supplies, 29.4, postage, 29.5, information technology, 29.6, website. Total office equipment, $84,500 requested, $84,500 recommended. Line item 30, Parks and Recreation, 30.1, salaries, 30.2, operating expenses, 30.9, spray park. Total Parks and Recreation, $63,275 is requested, the same amount is recommended. Yes.
Back to library.
Yes.
I would recommend that people do 177,676.
Okay.
Because
Hold on.
excuse me, I don't want to sorry. Okay, all right. I thought.
I'm fine. Sometimes you gotta solve them as they come. All right, but before we go on, advisory now has,
I just want to clear, so there was an issue with a library salary that was presented to Collins. We're going to resolve that in the fall as well with a process rather than budget numbers at the last minute right before town meeting. We're going to manage it in the fall. And we agreed with the trustees that that was an appropriate way to do it.
line item 32, townhouse maintenance, 32.1, custodial, 32.2, maintenance and repairs, 32.3, heat and utilities. Total townhouse maintenance, $87,000 requested, $87,000 recommended. Line item 34, ambulance, $342,990 requested, $342,990 recommended. Line item 35, gasoline, 35.1, purchase, 36.1, gasoline expenses. Requested is $60,000, recommended is $60,000. Line item 36, street lighting, $23,000 is requested and the same amount is recommended. Council on Aging, line item 37, 37.1, director's salary, 37.2, general salary, 37.3, expenses. Total Council on Aging, $171,854 requested, $171,854 recommended. I see a hand. Mr. Netherwood.
Yeah, Andrew Netherwood, 46. Question I got is a street lighting one.
Yes, sir.
We went without LED lights and everything. I thought we were supposed to actually save money on it, not spend more from 2020.
Anybody have an answer to that?
Oh. I think as Dick said before, the 2020 is the extended number, not the appropriate number. Probably, I think, appropriate 23,000 in 2020 as well. The LED lighting will allow us to satisfy the list that we asked the police chief for of additional intersections that need lights. And I think, Scotty's still here, but it was a total, I think, of 10 to 15 other intersections they would like street lights at. And with the savings from the LED lights, we hope to put them up as well. Thank you, Scotty.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? We've been here. Okay, good. Senior center, 38, line item 38.2, utilities, line item 38.3, building maintenance. Total senior center, $38,268 requested, $38,268 recommended. Historical commission, $400 requested, $400 recommended. Total general town services, $1,150,849 requested, $1,150,849 recommended. I hear a question. Robin?
It's more of a comment, Robin Morrison Road. The whole town services expended just 2 years ago. Like, I know there's inflation. I know there's things that we need to go from 644,204. We almost double in 2 years.
Yeah.
Am I misunderstanding that?
No, the selectmen are pointing out to me, I'm getting a side answer for you. Wait a minute, hold on.
There, we added, the ambulance, $330,000, so we could have 24/7/365 service. So we had 654 plus 330 brings it to 954. And then salary. That was the big jump.
Okay, are you set? All right. Highway department, line item 40, superintendent salary, $89,838 requested, $89,838 recommended. 40.1, departmental payroll, $611 requested, $268,611 recommended. Line item 41, tree warden, 41.1, expenses, $49,850 requested, $69,850 recommended. Salary, $6,600. Yep.
I got a question on the expenses. Why $20,000 jump?
Advisory committee is going to answer that.
There were a couple of projects. Sorry, a couple of projects that were presented to the community preservation committee that did not meet the requirements of CPA, and they were related to removal, one in the oil parking lot at the entrance to Newtown, Suffolk. And so instead, they need to be managed, and we thought that the tree warden would be best equipped to manage that issue in the town. He did not present that in his budget, but didn't come to his attention at that time. And it came to us as advisor to the CPA conversation. And we thought that the $20,000 would be placed here as an appropriate expenditure.
Why wouldn't we place those in the appropriate budgets, I'm going to say, the areas where they should be? Parks and Rec is going to get, I'm going to round numbers, 15K probably.
So we had,
And then I don't think Minnetonka Mountain has a line, has a budget in here, but why wouldn't we give that money to those places and let them manage that work?
we had a conversation, quite a conversation at advisory, 1 or 2 evenings, and our perspective, the board perspective was that the tree warden is the tree expert and has those relationships with contractors, and the person that should best decide how those trees should get handled, and not the Rec Commission or the land trust. We wanted it managed consistent with the way we manage other trees around town.
So the sense of the advisory committee was the change in that number was that money had been requested in one place, but after discussion, it was felt better that it could be managed by the tree warden and moved it to his account. So it does alter the requested amount, but it was a shifting from one line to another. And I did not finish reading. Total tree warden, $56,450 requested, $76,450 recommended. Good so far? Okay. Public grounds, line item 42, $4,385 requested, $4,385 recommended. Line item 43, highway maintenance, expenses, I'm sorry, let me get to the total, went on my own sequence. Expenses, line 43.1, paving, total highway maintenance, $315,672 requested, $315,672 recommended. Sorry about that. Line item 44, general highway expense, $15,645 requested. It is also do not recommended. Snow and ice removal, $100,000 requested, $100,000 recommended. Line item 46, contract services, 46.1, street sweeping, 46.2, catch basin cleaning. Total contract services, $63,700 requested, $63,700 recommended. Other highway accounts, line item 47.1, road machinery maintenance, $18,000 requested, $18,000 recommended. Line item 48, building expenses, 48.1, expenses and utilities, $15,000 requested, $15,000 recommended. Total highway department, $947,301 requested, $967,301 recommended. Again, because of the shifting of the funds to the tree warden. Protections of persons and property. Line item 50, animal inspection, 50.1, salary, 50.2, expenses, 50.4, wildlife control. Total animal inspection, $5,283 requested. It is the same amount that is being recommended. Line item 51, emergency management, $5,000 requested, $5,000 recommended. Line item 51.5, traffic control, $15,000 requested, $15,000 recommended. Line item 52, dog officer, 52.1, animal control, 52.2, dog damage fund, total dog officer, $13,639 requested and recommended. Line number 53, fire department, 53.1.1, medical director, emergency medical services. Line item 53.1, fire chief salary. Line item 53.2, fire chief expenses. 53.3, operation. 53.4, equipment. 53.5, training stipend. 53.6, radio service agreement. 015537, call reimbursement. 015538, fire department salaries. 015538.1, clerical. 015539, uniforms. 53.10, EMS supplies. 53.11, fire officer stipends. Total fire department, amount requested, $380,756. Total recommended, $380,910. Forest fire control. I'm sorry.
I'm just curious why the 3.11. Did that put in when they did their budgets and the advisory?
So the questions you're asking, is it 53.11? You're saying it's not in, it's in the green sheet. I'm actually reading from the one that I got in the mail.
But I just wanted to, it's not in the book. I'm just wondering, was it submitted to advisory originally or was it changed and added after? They submitted their budget to advisory.
Advisory, do you have an answer for that?
I'm not sure, what book are you referring to there?
The town.
Oh, that got published before or even our public hearing, so things came in later than that. So it's just a timing issue.
Okay. Fair question. If I just, let's see, let's do this, be sure I caught it. 54, forest fire control, $1,800 requested, the same amount recommended. Line item 56, health, board of, 56.1, salary, 56.2, clerk salary, 56.3, expenses, 56.4, health nurse, total board of health, $73,069 requested, $73,153 recommended. Water district, 565.1 operation, 565.2 testing. Total water district, $10,000 requested and the same amount recommended. Police department, line item 57, 57.1, chief salary, asterisk note, additional salary of $20,000 included in the career incentive line. 57.2, general salaries. 57.3, maintenance of cruisers. 57.4, general expenses. 57.5, new cruisers. 57.6, training. 57.7, equipment. 57.8, career incentive pay, otherwise known as the Quinn bill. 57.9, building maintenance and expense. The total at the break in this page is $1,656,523 requested, $1,656,523 recommended. Line item 58, other police accounts. Line item 58.1, election and town meetings. 58.2, towing clerk. 58.3, WMLEC, that's the Western Mass Radio Communication Program. Total police, $1,658,219 is the amount requested. It is the same amount that is being recommended. Line item 59, police fire communications, $60,663 requested and the same amount recommended. Total protection, $2,223,429 requested. $2,223,667 is the recommended number. Good so far? Okay. Schools, regional school district, and back to the question that came before, just like the libraries, this is voted as one number, it's by statute. Line item 69.1, the assessment to the town, $7,542,467 is requested. It is the same amount that is being recommended. The school committee had some requests about doing a presentation. Do you want to see if there's any questions and we'll keep going, or are you? Well, that might make your life easier. Local debt. Line item 770. I recognize there's not numbers in each of the categories, but we'll read them just for the matter of the record. 70.4 is Green Meadow Bond. 70.7 is infrastructure roads. 70.8 Minichog Bond. 70.9 Minichog Retro Bond. 70.10 Police Department. 70.11 Highway Truck. 70.12 Air Packs. Total local government debt, $904,718 is requested. The same number is recommended. Our grand total budget for the year is $14,839,069 requested. $14,859,458 is the recommended amount. Do we have a motion to accept? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. We've had our discussion in it. This week, the approval of our budget requires a majority vote. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion carries. One second, folks.
What do you mean? Oh, voter. You should have had one. Didn't you have one?
Are you guys all set? Sorry. Perfect.
Oh, no, I know.
All right. Article 3, prior year bills. To see if the town will vote to authorize the payment of any departmental bills from fiscal year 2020 or previous years, and will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money therefore, or take any other action relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town take no action on this article. We have no outstanding bills. I mean, town, I do.
Thought he wasn't going to get it back for a second. So we have a motion, we have a second. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action on the no action.
So the no action vote requires a majority vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. Article 4, fiscal 2022 spending limits for the revolving funds. This is a question we see every year. To see if the town will vote to authorize the following total expenditures for each of the following revolving funds pursuant to general law, chapter 44, section 53E1/2 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, to be expended in accordance with the bylaws heretofore approved or take any other action relative thereto. Now, the funds, they will be done in a motion, but we will read it for the record. The fund is the Building Department Fund, $85,000. Board of Health Fund, $25,000. Cemetery Commission Fund, $34,386. Council on Aging Fund, $21,000. The Library Fund, $3,000. Conservation Commission Fund, $20,000. Planning Board Fund, $10,000. We have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to authorize the following total expenditure for the following revolving funds in amounts not to exceed the following amounts pursuant to general laws, chapter 44, section 53E1/2 for the fiscal year 2022. Building Department Fund, $85,000. Board of Health Fund, $25,000. Cemetery Commission Fund, $34,386. Council on Aging Fund, $21,000. Library Fund, $3,000. Conservation Commission Fund, $20,000. Planning Board Fund, $10,000.
Got a motion. Do we have a second? Got a second. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
The advisory recommends favorable action.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Article 5, Enterprise Fund Transfer Station. To see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to fund the operations of the transfer station, determine whether the money shall be provided by estimated income to be derived in the fiscal year 2022 from the operations of the transfer station, by the tax levy, by transfer from available funds, including the retained earnings of the relevant enterprise fund, or by combination of any of these methods, or take any other action relative thereto. Motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate the following amounts for the transfer station enterprise fund. $29,560 for salaries, $55,500 for cash hauling and MERV contracts, $1,405 for miscellaneous expenses, $14,000 for purchase of bags, for a total of $100,467. And that $100,467 be raised as follows. Department receipts, $90,467, and the general fund, $10,000.
You've got a motion, and you've got a second for the operation of the transfer station. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
The advisory recommends favorable action.
This requires a majority vote. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. We're on to Article 6. This question will be taken in 4 parts, so it's a little bit long-winded. Hang in there. Article 6, Community Preservation Committee, to see if the town will vote to appropriate or reserve from the Community Preservation annual revenues in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for the committee's administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in the fiscal year 2022, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation or take any other action relative thereto. Again, there are 4 separate ones we're going to take. The first one is A, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $15,500 from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of reimbursing the Hampden Housing Authority for the replacement and improvement of exterior faucets, interior shutoff valve located within Centennial Commons, or take any other action relative thereto. B, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $3,000 from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of regrading and drainage of a portion of the lower ball field at Memorial Park, or take any other action relative thereto. C, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $10,000 from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of excavation and grading at the entrance to Mount Vision located on North Road, or take any other action relative thereto. The last one is D, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $9,300 from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of retaining a consultant to prepare a file request for the designation of a Hampden Village National Historic District or take any other action relative thereto. Again, we're going to take these as separate questions, motions, we're going to follow the exact procedure. The first one is for the Hampden Housing Authority. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate $15,500 from the community preservation fund for the purpose of reimbursing the Hampden Housing Authority for the replacement and improvement of exterior closets and interior shut-off valve located in the Centennial Plaza.
We've got a motion and a second to take CPC money for this purpose. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Is there any discussion? There appears to be no questions. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Looks good. We're on Memorial Park. So we have a motion.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate $3,000 from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of recreating and drainage of a portion of the lower ball field at Memorial Park.
Does the advisory committee have a recommendation? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I did that too quick. We did get 2 seconds. So we've got a motion and a second. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Any questions or discussion? Somebody in the back? Go ahead. No? Okay. All right, so this also will require a majority vote. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? On to item 3. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate $10,000 from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of excavating and grading the entrance to Mount Vision located on North Road.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We've got 3 seconds. We're getting better. We're piling them up. Is there any questions or discussion? Yep. Go.
Advisory committee recommends favorable action.
Wow, see, I had it red coded for you and everything. Now, see, Bob, all these years I chastised you for this, so. There we go. All right, the advisory committee has made a recommendation. Is there any discussion? I think we are good. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Number 4.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate $9,300 from the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of retaining a consultant to prepare and file a request for designation of Camden Village as a National Historic District.
We've got a motion. We've got a second. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
We have a complicated recommendation. We've got a split decision. We have 3 voting for negative action, 1 for favorable action, and 1 abstention.
It is the chair's understanding that there are some questions and a presentation. So Connie, you want to come up? We're going to give you a microphone. I don't know which one it's going to be. Watch it. Oh, Doug's got it.
Yes, it is complicated, and I understand.
Connie, is it on? It's on.
No, it's on.
Hold it closer. Hold it right up to your mouth.
Go back to your mouth.
Okay, can you hear me now?
No.
It should be on. Here,
Is it
Connie,
green?
Connie, take
It's
mine.
green. It's
This
flashing
one's
green.
Right. And if it goes wrong, it's you.
I am soft spoken. Can you hear me now?
Barely.
All right, I will speak louder. If I start talking, it's just simply, it's not COVID, it's just because I'm shouting. I am co-chair of the historical commission. We decided to ask for community preservation money for the research needed to apply for National Register District status. This is basically just a recognition that our town matters, that the village of Hampden matters. There are
lot of misconceptions about districts. It's not your fault. This is a nationwide problem. People have not been given all of the information they need to find the difference between a national register district and a local historic district. They are two entirely different things. Now, we came up with a list of questions we thought you might be thinking of and wanting to ask. And I can answer those questions quickly. The first question would be, will this tell me what I can do with my property? No, it will not. This has no effect on anything you might want to do to your property. You can paint it black with polka dots, you can tear it down, you can put an addition on, as long as you follow existing laws that already exist. We're not asking for any law. Will your property value go down? It's an historic district. 30 nationwide studies, over 30, have shown that National Register District status increases the value of the property. The third question, can you tear down your house? Go ahead. This has absolutely no authority at all. It's in a National Register District or just fancy, expensive houses where famous people live. No, it is not. This is something that shows throughout the country how the entire country lived and what it's like in the stories that those buildings and landscapes have to tell both our own town citizens and citizens in the larger community of the country. Excuse me, with the shouting is getting. How many National Register districts are there in Massachusetts? There are over 900. That's about 2.5 National Register districts for every town. And I might mention that we do have one single building on the National Register, and that's the Thornton Burgess House, along with the barn, the 2 studios, and 18 acres. Those were placed here decades ago by Audible. Can you get grant money to restore your house? Sorry, if you're an individual homeowner, you're out of luck. If you own rental property, however, you might have 2-family and live on the first floor and rent second, and it's within this district that we are proposing. You could get a tax credit of 20% from the federal government and 20% from the state government. However, this is a big one. And I think it's worth going for if for nothing else. It doesn't matter whether you care about preservation or not. The town would be eligible for 50% grant for historic rehabilitation for both the townhouse and Academy Hall, which would be included in the district. And that is what, and it's not just historic rehabilitation. We need an elevator in the townhouse. This would take 50% of it. CPA funds, of which we have quite a bit, which is over, I think, 300,000, can pay the town's share, the 50% that the town would have to pay. And we can take it out of CPA, which means you don't have to have it in your budget for an Article 1. So to me, that alone makes it worthwhile. There's got to be a catch, right? There is. There's only one catch, at least that I've known of in all of the time that I've been in preservation. And I can't find anything in state or federal papers that says anything different. And that's that if the federal project was to take place in that area, in the Hampden Village area, that it does trigger a review. And that review tries to mitigate the effects of any project. For instance, if a 4-lane highway was to be put down Main Street, it would require tearing every house down and every other building. And that would just trigger this review, and it would try to mitigate that loss. But if you don't, even with all of these questions that I have just answered, if you still didn't want to be in the district, but your house was in the district, you can write a letter to the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and they will remove your house from that list. And I just, maybe you don't know what village district is. And I would just say, I can say that it goes from the Revolving Dam on Main Street. Does everybody know where that is? Does anybody want to need that answer? Okay. The Revolving Dam is the dam that was built for the woolen mill, which has since been destroyed. 2 of them were destroyed. Excuse me. Goes from the Revolving Dam on the west, that's the west end of it, up to and including Prospect Hill Cemetery on Spearman Road. And then the south part of the district is Old Cemetery. And the north part of the district is on North Road at the Beatty House, which is at the convergence of Mountain Road and North Road. So it's not very large. There are 87 residential properties. And there would be 118 forms that would need to be filled out. Yes.
Oh, hold on, let's do it this way. No, it's okay, let me call. We'll go here first and Gary, you're second. Go ahead.
Moderator, may I make a comment?
Yes.
I'm Ellen, 43 North Road. My husband and I live in the home of Sumner Sessions, Elizabeth Sessions, both of whom played an important part of the history of our town. And in the past, I've been very vocal about the proposals that the historical commission has made, primarily because it took away the rights of the homeowners to make decisions. Because I have been so vocal, I feel it's important for me at this point to express my appreciation to the historical commission for recognizing what the flaw was with their other 2 proposals, and to let you know that I am 100% in favor, and so that so we are in favor of this proposal because it keeps all of the control with the homeowner. And I've done independent research too, Patty, to make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we've got one count now. Gary Weiner.
Moderator, Connie, the $9,300 would result in a filing for this district. Is that correct?
Yes, it would. After all of the warrants are prepared, they are sent to Mass Historical. They have a person there who looks it over and sends it to the national.
Within the town, who submits? Who's going to sign to submit to the theft?
I guess the historical commission, but I'm not sure actually who signs for the town.
Okay, then the follow-up question would be, if whoever signs for the town, we get designated, that area gets designated, do we have to accept it? Because at this point, if it gets pushed through without a full discussion of it, can we say no, thank you?
This is town meeting, this is a full discussion if we vote to extend the money for the district. We voted that we want the district, but as a homeowner, you're not in the district. But if you were, you could write a letter to the state. And remove your house from the national register list. If a later owner wanted to see it, they could try that.
So before we go any further, because I heard this question come up, and I want to make sure it's understood. If you can all hear me, I won't take the microphone from Connie. If you can, I will. I heard the question a couple times, and if I want to make sure, because Gary, your question. You did? Okay. So the question, can you hear me? No. Connie, we should never have given you this. Are you guys on? Here we go. It should be okay now. Can you hear me? I'd heard this question come from a couple different places. I actually heard it discussed a little bit with the advisory committee. And in as much as the microphone wasn't involved in Gary's question, I want to make sure that we repeat it so we're all clear on what we're doing here. If the question is two-part in essence, we are voting whether or not to expend the funds to pay for the study. But if we vote to expend the funds to pay for the study will be submitted and we will have the National Historic District. So to be clear, it's not that we're just voting the money and then we're going to come back here and have another vote about participating. You vote, we expend it, we're in it, and then you can petition separately to get out of it. Is that correct, Connie?
Yes, that is correct. And we may expend money and for some reason we're not accepted. I don't see that being a problem because we've already had a survey done and we are National Register eligible. So we should have absolutely no problem.
So for those of you who didn't hear, what Connie's follow-up to my summary was simply that her expectation is that if the money is voted, the study is done, the paperwork is submitted, in all likelihood, we will be accepted into the district. So that's what you were trying to ask, Gary, and I just want to make sure it was clear because I've heard that question a couple of times. Fair? Okay, hold on, we've got one from the selectmen. Let's take the citizen first.
Yeah, correct. You just surmise what the benefit is to the common taxpayer, because I'm not understanding what the benefit is.
The benefit would be basically for the town of Camden because it would make us eligible for that 50% grant from the state, Mass Preservation Projects Act.
For government.
For the government, it's a real good deal. For the average homeowner, it's just a recognition. For the average citizen of Camden, it's also recognition that this place matters.
I believe there's two, one from the selectmen at least, maybe two. Yeah.
quick question, Connie, I echo what Ellen said before. We appreciate everything you've done. Sometimes we don't agree with the motions back and forth. Let's go back to scenic road bylaw, those stone walls are ours. But one question I have for this, the 93 homes you're talking about, have you talked to all those homeowners and let them know they're potentially in this register?
I did try to go to every home. Had some family issues this week and wasn't able to complete it. I went from the ravine dam up to the townhouse on Main Street and Riverside Drive and talked to people as they came to the door, if they came to the door, and left this information with everyone in the district. Printed by Mass Historical. This was printed by Massachusetts Historical Commission with money from the National Park Service. And it says there is a difference, local, blah, 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 and then National Register districts. And it's because there's so much confusion. It's throughout the country. And there's a map. This was left at every door. And the questions that I answered for you this evening.
So just, you folks couldn't see it, but I could, and Connie was kind enough to provide the moderator with the same paperwork. So what she's saying she left for each of those homeowners was exactly what she read here, and a summary of the map that she also left for them to describe it. Are there any other questions? I see at least two. Yes. Oh, that's right, Don, I touched on. Yeah. I'll say that.
I get ignored all the time, it's fine. I'm just wondering, would the planning board have to do any zoning?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so I see Jim and I see Mark Casey. Let's start with Jim. Yeah, the advisory committee. So Carol, if you could summarize, I think it was 3 no's and abstained and 1 in favor, but go ahead, you guys.
Jim, you're right, that's what the vote was within the 5 advisory members. I don't want to speak for the other 4, I'll speak for myself. I'm not in support of this. This is being brought forward by the Camden Reservation Committee because the request for funding falls within the criteria for consideration of town meeting, exactly what this is. That does not mean that it's an endorsement of the merits of the proposal itself. Speaking for myself, my concern is that designation of anything, whether it be state or federal district, area, whatever, comes with some consequences. And Klein has outlined what is known as of now. I'm not comfortable with designation without a more definite benefit to the town. The fact that we may qualify for funding for renovation of 2 buildings in the district, to me, is not enough of an incentive to have those potential consequences, which to me, that's why I want to do it.
Anybody else from the advisory want to comment? I know you had some conversation.
I pretty much agreed with what Doug said, but I also thought that could be such a important project to 93 homeowners that I thought there should be some more public hearings on this, and I just didn't think there was enough information that I was comfortable with.
Fair enough. Anybody else? No, hold on.
As a sole person who voted in favor of this motion, as a former U.S. history teacher, I can tell you that it's very important for children and students. Before they know where they're going, they have to know where they came from and where they've been. And part of that is knowing the town, excuse me, the history of the town of Hampden.
All right, Mark, you're up.
Yeah, we're Casey Main Street. You hear me okay, Rick?
I can hear you.
Okay. I'm a history guy. I just see the way this is presented as a register. Well, I am aware that the historical commission has a list of different houses, maybe the other house now, and whether they're historic or not. The most, I'm not against the list, but this is, the wording here is the designation of Camden Village National Historic District. This is a vote on a district. This was not in the green sheet. And as the last gentleman on the board just said, there needs to be some discussion about this and have it presented properly and fully. There's always consequences when a historic district of this type is some kind of consequences to the individual homeowner. And I think it should have been in the green sheet. So because there's probably people who live on Main Street that are not here and probably would have been if it was. But presented as a register. That's kind of-
Okay, hold on, I know there's two more at least. I got two more at least. John Matthews.
Yeah, John Matthews, North Clinton Road. I'm a member of also the planning board. Connie, what you're outlining would be more or less construed as an overlay district, okay? So there would, I know you're shaking your head no, so what I'm asking though is that I believe that we should have engaged town council before we go ahead and move on this subject, okay? I'm all for the history. It's a great town, rich in history. But I think we need to proceed a little slowly.
It is an overlay district, John.
I'm sorry, Connie, I don't think you can hear.
It isn't an overlay district because there are absolutely no regulations involved with it.
All right.
We got one more question. Wait, hold on. I see one more. Gary.
Connie, would you be willing to just take out the terminology fire? I'd be in support of going through the process of preparation with the understanding that the historical commission then start the whole hearings, or at least one hearing on what you're about to file. That way, the town has an opportunity, not just the 90,000, but the town has an opportunity to weigh in on whether or not to file the application. Take the word and file
There will be meetings.
John's gonna finish up.
There will be meetings that will discuss it with the consultant that will be hired. That's part of her thing in a PowerPoint presentation. But we need the money to get the warrants on first.
Okay. Connie, let's do this 1 second. We're gonna move this in a second. John, go ahead.
I have one point, and I think this goes back to the point that was brought before about the notice of it. Everybody here and everybody in town works with the green sheets. This wasn't on the green sheet. My concern is, and Connie, you went out and walked as many as you could. You got a lot of people in this 90-something list here that have no idea that this is happening. And that's concerning to me. I would request that maybe you might do that outreach, reach out to people and bring this back in the fall. And I think, everybody here understands the good things that could be here. Could this be brought back at the fall town meeting?
I've reached out, there are
All right, 1 second.
There are
We're almost done.
87 properties, private properties in this district. The district also includes
the town buildings and public landscapes. 87 houses. There are 118 forms in all. Some of those forms are blank. And that's 87 houses. I know I went to at least 50. I don't know what else I could have done.
So before I take any more questions, because we put a fair amount of time in this, I just think procedurally, so everybody understands something, because Mark Casey made the comment that it wasn't in the green sheet, and Selectman Flynn brought up the same thing. Just for practical understanding, when this was originally structured as a warrant question, even the original motion was structured as one, in essence, to accept the report of the CPC committee and support for all of the questions that's on total. But we opted to split them up so that each of them, especially because of something like this, would get fully vetted by the town meeting and not be put in as one number. So that said, I think we've pretty well covered it. I'd like to move on it unless we have something completely different. If not, I'd like to get going with this one. Yeah, is something completely different and new?
I just want to make a motion to hold the question and move it to the following meeting.
Even if you defeat the question, it doesn't prevent the petitioner from bringing it back.
Based on what the conversation recently was, it's based that there wasn't enough information presented, so it's for time now.
Yep.
To reach out to everybody, whether it's have Zoom meetings for everyone around, involve all those residents.
Yep.
And then bring it back to them.
So theoretically, we're really at one of three choices here. We can, the motion on the table is to award the money for this process. We can do it on up or down vote. That does not preclude the petitioner from bringing it back. Or theoretically, we could move to a no action on the article. It's the net effect is the same because the bottom line is the petitioner always has the right to come back. I'm sorry, Judge, you got something for me?
2 years.
It is 2 years. If they could withdraw, or if we took, what about no action? You know what, I thought we had this fairly well covered. No action would allow us to, okay. But there is a motion on the table. So I'm thinking how we pull the motion. There's been a motion to vote for money. I would assume we could just simply go with the other motion.
Well, let me just can't come back to it. If you withdraw, no action.
Oh, all right, hold on. So we've actually got something. Connie does not wish to withdraw the question on behalf of the Historical Society. So that really brings us down to simply an up or down vote. Hold on. All right, let's see this. We got one more question. Please, it's got to be completely different, not new information. Rita.
To try to bring the history of Camden to us. And this is a perfect example of how they're doing that. And as it's already been said, our history is an important part, not just for us, but help us pass it down to our children.
Okay. Okay, but that's okay. So I understand that it's exactly as was said by the advisory committee. Unless we have something absolutely new and different, I want to move this question. I saw your hand. Is it something new and completely different? I got you.
No, I moved Camden. This is the reason why I moved Camden. Because that row of houses on Main Street is a big deal.
Sir, I'm gonna ask to cut this off because it's really, unfortunately, it's more of the same argument. And with all due respect to the point, I think it's time to move on. There being nothing more that's new, the question is not going to be withdrawn. So this is a straight up and down vote on the question itself. Those in favor of the motion of appropriating the money, please raise your cards. Those opposed to raising the money, the motion is defeated. We are on to Article 7, Conservation Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the Conservation Fund. Said fund to be used for the purpose of acquiring available land for the town for conservation purposes. If said purchase is voted upon and approved at the annual or special town meeting prior to such purchase, or take any other action relative thereto. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise appropriate the sum of $1,000 for conservation fund. That fund to be used to acquire available land for the town for conservation purposes. If said purchase is voted upon at an annual special town meeting prior to such purchase.
We've got a motion, we've got a second. Does the advisory committee have an opinion?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
All right, so we've got the advisory committee recommendation. Is there any discussion on the question itself? Seeing none, this is a majority vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Article 8. This is another one of those articles we see on a regular basis, and it's part of the overall structure of our budget. Article 8, Chapter 90, State Highway Aid, to see if the town will vote to accept the sum of money from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 90, Section 34, and the Transportation Department's Chapter 90 guidelines, and be allowed to borrow in anticipation of reimbursement or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town accept $256,039 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts under Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 34, and be allowed to borrow in anticipation of 100% reimbursement.
Got a motion, we've got a second. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Is there any question or discussion? All right, seeing none, you need to know this requires a 2/3 vote because there is the potential for borrowing as we wait for the state reimbursement. All those in favor of the question, please raise your cards. Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Question number 9, library, additional state aid. To see if the town will vote that in fiscal 2022, if state aid for the library is received, this money will be made available to the library trustees to use at their discretion or take any other action relative thereto.
I move that the town vote that in fiscal year 2022, if state aid is received for the Hampden Public Library, this money will be made available to library trustees for use at their discretion.
That was outstanding. I'm guessing your kids must have listened well. We got a motion, we got a second. Does the advisory committee have a?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
This requires a majority vote as well. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Article 10. Again, the next two questions we've seen on a regular basis. Transfer to the assessor stabilization fund. To see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, or transfer from available funds a sum of money into the assessor stabilization fund or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I would move that the town raise, appropriate, or transfer from available funds $10,000 for deposit into the assessor stabilization fund to meet all Department of Revenue mandated requirements.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Left your guy hanging on. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Okay, is there any question or discussion on this? I see a question. Peter,
Peter has to get voting on this, but we're gonna raise it, appropriate, transfer.
yeah, that question did pop up. So do we have an answer for this? The assessors, is it,
The motion's defective. Yeah.
pardon me?
The motion's defective. It doesn't say what you want to do. I've never seen both in the motion.
That'll be raised and appropriate.
Okay,
You want to withdraw and restate it?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that. I got
I'll withdraw
it.
that.
Thanks for the help.
I'll withdraw that previous motion, Mr. Moderator.
Oh,
And I will move that the town raise and appropriate the amount of $10,000 to be deposited in the assessor stabilization fund, to meet all Department of Revenue mandated requirements.
okay, the motion has been remade that this is raise and appropriate. And it has been seconded. Does the advisory committee now have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Is there any question? All right, now that we've got it clean. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Article 11 is transfer from the assessor stabilization fund. To see if the town will transfer from the assessor stabilization fund a sum of money for fiscal year 2022 Department of Revenue mandated programs or take any other action relative thereto.
I was moderator, I would move that the town vote to allow transfer of $10,025 from the assessor stabilization fund, fiscal 2022 Department of Revenue mandated requirements.
And a second. We do have the second. Does the advisory committee have an opinion?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
All right, now, this is money coming out of accounts. When we put money into an account, it's easy, it's majority, but when we take it out, it requires 2/3. So to pull the money from the assessor's account for their use requires a 2/3 vote with no discussion. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Article 12, senior tax exemption. To see if the town will increase the maximum allowable gross receipts from all sources under general laws 59, section 5, clause 41C to the senior tax exemption or take any other action relative thereto. This is you. Okay.
Mr. Moderator, I would move that the town pursuant to subsection 3, second paragraph, general laws, chapter 59, section 5, clause 41C, vote to increase the maximum allowable gross receipts to $20,000 for single persons and $30,000 for married couples.
We've got a motion, we've got a second. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, this is a majority vote. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Article 13, school resource officer. To see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to fund the school resource officer for fiscal year 2021 at Minichog Regional High School or take any other action relative thereto. We have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $11,034 to fund the school resource officer for fiscal year 2021 at Minnesota Regional High School.
We've got a motion and a second. Do we have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
We've got favorable action recommended. Are there any questions? Seeing none, this is a majority vote. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Advisory Committee Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the Advisory Committee Reserve Fund or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $25,000 for the advisory committee reserve fund.
We have a second? We've got a second. The advisory, how do you feel about your motion?
We love it. Favorable action.
Great. Are there any questions? Seeing none, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? We're done. That one's good. Motion carries. And let's see, Article 15, highway garage expansion. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow or transfer from available funds a sum of money to fund expansion of the highway garage or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $300,000 to fund the expansion of the highway garage.
Guys are getting slow. Advisory committee, recommendation.
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Are there any questions? I see at least one. Robin?
Correctly, but in your budget, there's $250,000 for paving roads, correct?
Mhm.
And then you had just appropriated another, what, 250,000 for grant, right? Is this right?
I think you're talking about the state of chapter 90 money.
Right.
Yep.
And isn't that also for roads?
Those are for roads
Right,
and,
so that's 500,000 that they have available for roads.
yep,
So.
It-
Okay, so if we need it, if they take part of that 250 and apply it, right, would we actually need $500,000 paid?
no, the money that comes from the paving account is designated to paving.
Yeah,
The money that comes from the state, and Mark, you correct me if I'm wrong, that money is for highway infrastructure improvement, not just necessarily paving, but it is not to be used for building expansion or anything of that nature. John, do you want to add to that? Yeah, so a little bit of experience in that area, but that money could not be used for building expansion. That's a capital improvement and it's the responsibility of the town.
so if we have 500,000, what is the need? For that much done now? I mean, I don't know, it seems to be a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, to the question, and again, I want to be careful, I'm the moderator, if I can give you an answer without lobbying the point. The building expansion is a separate issue, and the question of the paving, I'm going to assume, was brought through the process and to the advisory and to the selectmen who have sight over that department. And I would assume that there would be a need or they wouldn't have asked for it, but I'll let them speak to the question if it need be.
Will this be a comment?
Well, this is actually a considerable decrease from the paving we used to do. Many people here recall the bond we had, which gave us 400,000 a year, plus the roughly, it's been about 230 from the state every year. So the town was spending northwards of $600,000 on paving on an annual basis. Right now, we're dropping that number to just over 500,000. Doesn't even cover the increase in cost of materials. I mean, I'm sure Mark can tell you that the cost of oil, the cost of stone, everything has gone up. So we're not even keeping pace with inflation. But the advisory this year restored the money that was cut last year, balanced the budget back up to the 250 amount that we said would be good going forward.
Sounds okay. And no, I mean, that's the summary from the selectmen. Mark, do you want to add anything or do you feel like it's been explained? I like the way you think. Are there any more questions? There's two. Wait 1 second. Just you first, sir.
Yeah, I just have a question about what is the emergency for the garage? Existing garage, dilapidated or not existent anymore, or with the price and cost of lumber and construction, that's why you need more money, I see, to build this garage. So what's wrong with the old garage? Is it falling apart? Wait on this, we table this until lumber prices are more markedly fair?
That's a great question. And that was something we thought about. But going forward, the equipment we're getting, again, Mark can speak to this because he lives in it every day, won't fit in the current garage. The trucks we're getting now don't fit through the current doors. We have equipment that's outside that needs to be stored inside. We need those extra bays. This, and I'm looking for somebody who's older than me and the right many, but this garage has been around since
1938.
Thank you, refuge older than me. 1938, and it's had some updates. The actual highway guys went up and did the roof themselves. Cinder block construction. This is not the edifice down in downtown Boston that you see. If you go up there, you'll see it before. It is a critical need for the town. But you're 100% right. The rise in cost and prices, it's killed it. It really did. I'll just give you a quick example. Like you know, steel prices, I buy steel for my business, went up 120% in the past year. Girder, a sheet of plywood, somebody told me they were paying 120 for a sheet of plywood for certain types. Incredible.
Okay, I know there's another question. Straight back. Yes, sir.
The money appropriated was $300,000. Was that for a completed project or just for materials?
At that time, we had that estimate. That was the completed project. And then COVID hit and prices spiked.
I understand that. So now the new situation is 300,000, not a completed project.
I think he's asking.
So with the current bids, because of price of materials, the 300,000 that was appropriated a year and a half ago will not cover the cost of the project.
So where will the project go? Will it be just a partial project or just materials? Or might
So we appropriated $300,000 a year and a half ago to complete the, we didn't start it. So to complete the project with the current costs coming out there, we need the total of $600,000 because of material costs. So this will fund the increase in materials.
Okay, so it's an additional 300,000.
Basically, yes, we've already collected the other 300. This is not taxing for a total of 600. It will tell you that money has already been in there, collected by the town and in the bank.
Just one more part to that. So has the materials been purchased or is the contract simply just being extended for the completion?
We need the authorization from the town to go ahead and do that. This number does include a contingency for a continued little rise in material costs. Because we're all cognizant of the fact we go get 2x4 next week, it's probably going to be 20 cents higher than it was this week.
So just as a point of clarification, there's already been $300,000 encumbered for this project, and this is in addition to bring the project to completion. Elected encumbered, so the town has it. Are there any other questions? Seeing, sorry, where, oh, sorry, I didn't see it. Yeah.
What did they complete for the additionally raised the 300,000?
I believe the board responded to that. They said with the issues of COVID, they were not able to start the project. Okay. All right. Any other questions? This does not involve borrowing, so it requires only a majority vote. All those in favor of the project? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Article 16, Academy Hall, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to fund exterior painting of Academy Hall or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $7,000 to fund the exterior painting of Academy Hall.
The motion has been made and seconded. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Is there any question? Yes, sir.
I could be the CPC.
In order to fund this out of the community preservation fund, we would have to adhere to the Federal Department of the Interior guideline for renovation and restoration. Last time we went out to bid it with under those steps came back with one bid of $150,000.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, to raise and appropriate $7,000 requires a majority vote. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Article 17, Stormwater Bylaw Amendment. To see if the town will vote to amend the following section of the general bylaws by removing Chapter 14A, Erosion and Sediment Control for Stormwater Management, and replace Chapter A with the attached or take any other action relative thereto. And I believe, Gary, you're going to do the motion.
I move that the town vote to amend the stormwater bylaw by removing chapter 14A, erosion and sediment control for stormwater management, and replace chapter 14A, the ordinance document distributed with this form.
We've got a motion, we've got a second. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
I am told that there is a presentation, and I'm thinking we would go forward with the presentation if there's any questions with regard to this motion. If you'd like a presentation or have questions, we will absolutely do it. Are you saying you're prepared to vote on it? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Save you 4.5 minutes. Article 18, fire department truck. To see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to purchase a new truck for the fire department or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $55,384 to fund the purchase of a new truck for the fire department.
We've got a motion, we've got a second. Advisory committee,
Advisory recommends favorable action.
are there any questions? I see one in the back, by all means.
Is there a need for a new fire truck?
Is this going to be addressed by the fire chief or the select?
This is replaced 1981 pickup truck. It was 2004 Ford. One vehicle replaced two vehicles. Another driver.
Will this fire truck fit in for a fire station? Yes.
Just to be sure you all heard that. The question was, is there a need for the truck? The answer from the fire chief is yes. They will be replacing two vehicles that are older and apparently worn out with one vehicle. And the second part of the question was, would it fit in the firehouse? And the answer is yes. Did I get that right? Any other questions? Seeing none, this is only a majority vote. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Article 19, town water article. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to provide uncontaminated water to certain residents of Main Street or take any other action relative thereto. We have a motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to borrow $900,000 to extend the water main along Main Street with extensions to the fire department and highway department to provide water to certain residents of Main Street and to the highway and fire departments in the town.
We have a motion. We have a second. Does the advisory committee have, one second, I just want to get the advisory committee's recommendation first.
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Okay, so we've got the motion now. You know what? Hold on one second. Let John give some background.
I got a question because Article 19 doesn't read that. Is that what we're voting on?
What do you got? I have it as to.
I'm sorry, Article 19 reads to see if the town will raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available sums, a sum of money to provide uncontaminated water to certain residents of Main Street or take any action relevant thereto. Article 20 talks about the extension, where you would talk about the going up North Road or whatever.
So if I understand correctly as moderator, first we have to vote the construction phase of this project. But before even that commences, we also need to expand the water district itself.
So are you going to vote both of these together? Or are you voting-
They're separate.
Right.
They're going to be taken separate.
So
John, your point is that if either fails, we have a problem.
Go ahead.
Correct? Yes.
Hold on one second, so we don't get off track. John, do you want to do a bit of a?
I think in John's point, if either fails, you have a problem as your question.
I just want the language correct. In other words, Article 19 did not read the way that it was spoken. Sorry, that's So you went into, to extend the water district.
That's the next.
Not
one.
extending it yet.
No,
No.
You want to provide water.
this is just the construction part of phase only, right?
So you want to provide water, uncontaminated water to the residents. That's the first thing you want to do. That's Article 19.
And by Article 20, that will define the district to include a way to provide.
This will appropriate money to expand the piping to these houses.
Right. I'm okay with that.
That's what it moves.
He also, he went into the 570 Main Street and everything else.
It was more specific to the motion.
Okay.
He said where they're going to spend the money, but that is not in any district, it is a district vote. And they have different problems like votes, but you don't want to.
Yeah, I know where it is.
So in other words, in Article 19, you're going to expand the district.
Correct. 20.
19. So this is what I'm saying. It's confusing.
No, 19 is going to be infrastructure, 20 expands the district.
19.
All right, hold on, you guys, because I can't have you debating this between yourselves, because then the rest of the body gets lost. So Article 19 is designed to raise the money for the construction to expand the pipeline from its current location to some new properties in the Main Street corridor. Article 20 is required because Camden already has a water district, but we also have to name the new area of the district to be added to the current water district, so it's treated separate. I was on the board when we.
So a little history of it, as you are aware, those have been at town meetings before. There was an issue in the highway department where salt was entering the groundwater. That has been remediated by the use of storm drains, paving, etc. But that salt is down there. As we talked about in prior years, that has resulted in the issue that certain homeowners around that area, basically in a southwest corridor towards Skinner, have wells that have been contaminated at very high sodium chloride levels. The town has committed in prior years to remediating those problems. 2 wells were dug. One is next to Academy Hall, provides water to residences on the south side of Main Street. And to this point, that has not been an issue. The well performed well. The other well on the north side was drilled near Highway Department, and that well is not performing well at all. Numbers have gone up. There is really no other remediation in the area because of, if you're familiar with public water supplies, etc., you have to draw a large circle around, be separate from other wells, from other septics, etc. We hired a firm, Ty and Bond, to look at possible solutions, i.e. drilling other wells, putting remediation at the homes in the highway department, like reverse osmosis systems. What they recommended was connecting to a proven water supply, which is the Scannick Valley Water District. Working with the commissioners, we've ascertained that it has more than enough capacity to take care of these other homes. The issue, how do you get the water from point A to point B? It's a big number. We had a quote of over 600,000 to get it done. We are fortunate that we have the American Rescue Plan, so let's go about, which is the infrastructure money from the federal government. Hampden has been committed to receive a little over $1.5 million for water and infrastructure projects. This, as both Don and Bob have verified, qualifies for that money. It's the board's position that we will use the money from the government, for the American Rescue Plan, to pay for this project. This is a project that we're not looking to go out and borrow the full amount for. There'd probably be a minor amount for borrowing state house note debt while we wait for the reimbursement federal government, and you know they're good for it. But at that point, we would be on the hook for, and I don't even want to guess, but Dick would probably tell me $1,000 or something like that. So that's the plan we have here. We did put a contingency in, as you said, John, you just said it was like 600,000. You can't go out to bid until the town meeting is certified and the fiscal year begins, which is July 1st. We talked about it before, American Rescue Plan is putting a lot of infrastructure money out there. That means there'll be a lot of projects out there. Be prepared to pay a little more. Just like you're looking for an addition on your house, there's a lot of work out there, a few contractors, you're gonna pay a little more. So the number we have is the number recommended by the architect, by the engineers, for a project that's going out to bid in July. Not a project going out to bid in May. If the number comes in less, we have money for other projects. It doesn't cost you anymore. That's our plan.
Okay, so you've got the motion, you've got the second, we've got some explanations. Are there questions? Let's start. I see Mark.
Yeah, well, Casey, you actually got 3 questions. So you asked for 900,000, correct? Okay, so the rescue plan, this whole project is going to be over $2 million. With the federal funds included?
No, no,
I see.
my part, I wasn't clear. The 900,000 will come from the 1.5 we're getting from the federal government.
Oh, okay, so this whole project from start to finish is about 900,000.
Right, and it's all paid for by the American Rescue Plan.
The other 2 questions I have are with respect to the amount of water available.
Mhm.
One is, the first question is, how much water is available at the current wells there? How many more homes can be supplied? And the second question that goes along with that is, if you do this, the size of the pipe coming down Main Street, will that be able to supply additional homes later on, as additional homes that need to be built up to this? And how many of them?
Numbers we have from the Scannick Valley District, give to John and Craig here. We're showing that, I'm gonna say it was like over 11,000 gallons potential. The current 9 parcels, I believe, only take 2,000.
We could supply 14.7 thousand gallons of current wells. We average about 2,500 currently per day.
Right, and that's 8 homes right now at 2,500. If you do the math out, you could supply another 30 homes with the additional capacity. The other thing is that capacity is really a very conservative number coming out of the well. Mark, you were around at the time that we were looking at putting that district in. So is there a potential for, if the need be, if the town says, hey, here's a parcel that also needs remediation, could it be expanded? Yes, it could.
How about the size of the pipe that is proposed in this project? Are you going to size it so you'll have some capacity, extra capacity coming down Main Street, so if additional homes in that area be hooked up, so you don't have to go and dig it up against the big pipe?
It is the same as the, it is the same as the pipe that's being supplied, that supplies the Scannick Valley District, which I believe is 4 inch, right? 4 inch. That was a district that I believe was 9 parcels to start, but size for up to 18. So that 4 inch was more than adequate enough to supply 18. That's the same pipe coming down the other way.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Peter?
Yeah, Peter Hatch, Scannick Road. I have a neighbor that's hooked up to that system, and this water pressure is low now. One of the 9 that you're saying is already hooked up to it, they're gonna run down Main Street and supply how many other homes? Should have a number?
We have the numbers in the report. I can be happy to forward you a copy of the report.
I just want to know the actual homes that you want to get into.
4. Yeah.
One thing I recommend too, like Mark said, pipe size, I would recommend going much bigger pipe, there you have your storage in the pipe alone, never mind increasing what's at the station now. Your pumping station.
Okay.
That should be updated.
Yeah, we can look at that. Like I said, happy to, maybe talk to the water.
Before you went to the meeting,
I'm sorry?
you should have looked at it before you went to the meeting.
Well, we have these, like I said, I'm happy to have a look at the engineering report, Pete, stuff that they say it's fine. First off, we don't have the delta that you have going the other way. We have where it is at Laughing Brook, pretty much the same level going across down to Town Hall.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, now. Okay, now, because this is, there's anticipation of borrowing, awaiting reimbursement as described, this will require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the question, please raise your hands. Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Article 20, the second part of this question involves district expansion. Article 20, Scannick Road Water District expansion. To see if the town will vote to extend the Scannick Water District via a new main from the pump house at 789 Main Street west to 575 Main Street, approximately 2,640 feet, and further to extend an offshoot main at the intersection of Main Street and North Road, north to 19 North Road, known as the fire station, approximately 450 feet, and further to extend an offshoot main from 587 Main Street north to 589 Main Street, meaning the highway department. Approximately 400 feet. There is a map attached, which leave it part of your packages or take any other action relative thereto. Is this going to come from the water district?
I move that the town vote to extend the new water main from the Scannick Water Pump District house at 789 Main Street westward to 555 Main Street, and further to extend an offshoot main at the intersection of Main Street and North Road to 19 North Road, the fire station, approximately 450 feet, and further to extend the offshoot main from 587 Main Street north to 589 Main Street, the highway garage, approximately 400 feet, according to the map I got.
We have a motion. We have a second. Does the advisory committee have a recommendation?
Advisory recommends favorable action.
Are there any questions? This is expanding the water district. I don't see any. This would require a majority vote. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Article 21, general stabilization. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to the general stabilization fund or take any other action relative thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town take no action on this article.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second to take no action. How do you feel?
Fantastic.
Sweet.
Favorable action.
So it has been moved and seconded to take no action on this article. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Article 22, reducing the tax rate. To see if the town will vote to transfer from the general stabilization fund a sum of money for the purpose of reducing the tax rate for fiscal year 2022 or take any other action relative thereto. Motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town take no action on this article.
Moved and seconded. Safe to assume you feel fantastic?
That is very safe to assume. Favorable action.
Great. Any questions? This requires a majority vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Article 23 is a citizen's petition. And as much as our daughter is a dispatcher in the town of Hampden, this moderator will recuse himself from any discussion of the question. I have asked former judge, moderator, state rep, all-around good guy, Robert L. Howard, to take my place. I will also ask that as opposed to me coming back to the podium after, that Robert, are you going to make it?
Yeah.
Bad me. I would have moved the thing down there. I don't know. I'm also going to ask that as opposed to the procedure of having me come back to the podium after, that simply with this question, Robert entertained a motion to adjourn the meeting. And with that said, I pass the gavel to Robert L. Howard.
No, I went right there. Just want to try to get out and keep track of that.
The smaller of two egos.
Well, you're doing a good job, Rick. You've been talking like a great moderator, as I was. It's a cool. Thank you very much. Article 23, citizens petition. See if the town will vote to direct the board of selectmen in a non-binding referendum to keep emergency dispatch services in the town of Hampden, unless moving said services out of the town of Hampden has been agreed to by a majority of voters present at a town meeting, and to further direct the board of selectmen to aggressively pursue intermunicipal emergency dispatch agreements hosted by Camden in Hampden, or other fee for services dispatch agreements hosted by Hampden in Hampden. It may generate the revenue to offset some of the costs of the town's emergency dispatch or take any other action thereto. Motion. All right.
Mr. Moderator, James Smith, Glendale Road, Camden. I move that the town vote to express formal disapproval of the decision by the Board of Selectmen to move emergency dispatch services out of the town of Hampden without first obtaining the agreement of the majority of voters present at a town meeting.
For a second. Motion is made and seconded. Advisory, have an opinion.
Advisory committee recommends negative action.
Any questions or discussion? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion then. I'm stepping down to this. Moderator, I move to amend the motion to read that the town vote to express formal disapproval of the decision of the Board of Selectmen to exercise their legal authority to enter into a legal intermunicipal agreement as provided for in Massachusetts general law. A legal agreement which will save taxpayers a minimum of $1.5 million over 5 years. A legal agreement which will ensure compliance with emergency dispatch best practices. A legal agreement which will use the newest technology to benefit health and safety of town residents. And further, a legal agreement which will not affect emergency response time without obtaining the agreement of the majority of the votes. We make this motion. Wait a second.
Is there a second?
No, I'm saying express formal disapproval. I want you to know that when they vote to disapprove this, they're voting back to say 1.5.
Is there a second to this motion? Motion is made and seconded. There will be discussion now on the amendment to the motion. And that will be the next vote. Then we will go to the main motion. Any discussion on this?
I wonder what the record of the vote to regionalize. I wonder what the record of the vote to regionalize that service was. I'm wondering what, if you have a record of the vote to regionalize dispatch service. You're saying you're. Pardon me?
I think two motions on. We're going to vote. Two motions. There's an amendment to the motion.
I'd like the public to know what's about.
We're voting on this, yes. The question is. The question is what the vote of the selectmen was. And one of the selectmen answered that vote. The question.
Mr. Flynn and myself voted to consolidate dispatch with Wilbraham. This is clever.
Okay. Any more discussion on the amendment to the motion?
What the discussion up there was, we don't know what that motion is.
The motion was read by the selectmen. I'll have you read it again, please. Wow.
This is an amendment to Mr. Smith's motion. I move to amend the motion to read that the town vote to express formal disapproval of the decision of the Board of Selectmen who exercise their legal authority to enter into a legal intermunicipal agreement as provided for in Massachusetts general law. A legal agreement which will save taxpayers a minimum of $1.5 million over 5 years. A legal agreement which will ensure compliance with emergency dispatch practices. A legal agreement which will use the newest technology to benefit the health and safety of the town residents. And further, a legal agreement which will not affect emergency response time without obtaining agreement with the majority of the voters present.
What's your advisory board say?
Advisory has already answered the question. You have an,
No,
sorry,
that's
you have an opinion on the amendment? Negative action. Any other discussions and or questions on the amendment? On the amendment? Seeing none, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your card. All those opposed? Fine. Now we'll go to the motion itself, and there'll be discussion on that. Again, this is a non-binding question. Mr. Smith?
I'd like to start first out by saying nobody disputes the legality or the authority of the board of selectmen to do what they did. The dispute is with the fact that it wasn't taken to account. Starting May 18th, just a couple days from now, police dispatch services in Hampden will be provided by dispatchers in Wilbraham. Shortly thereafter, the Hampden police station will be dark at certain periods of time, meaning that if somebody is seeking the services of the police close to the station, let's say they're road rage issue, trying to seek some sort of sanctuary or domestic abuse, that station is not going to be immediately open for them. This was a decision to go with the Wilbraham dispatch made by the selectmen without town meeting approval. Again, I don't dispute, nobody disputes their authority to do that. The motivation for the decision is clear and understandable. There are significant savings associated with the merger. And there are state incentives with even ultimately the possibility of state mandates to regionalize. But there was plenty of time to do things. So how much are the savings? The selectmen estimated $2 to $3 million over a 10-year period. That indeed is a lot of money, but in that same 10-year period, and they used 2.5% increases, I'm using 2.5% increases, we would spend about $200 million as a community. So that comes out to about a penny to a penny and a half on your taxes to go for keeping local dispatch. Let's take a look at the history. In 2017, the Board of Selectmen was exploring the option of merging dispatch with Chicopee. This was prior to Chicopee forming the West County. At November 6, 2017 town meeting, the town overwhelmingly voted to quote, prohibit the Board of Selectmen and or the Chief of Police from entering into an agreement for regional dispatch. Again, a non-binding. The town meeting cannot direct the selectmen what they can do. They can only give them budgets to work with. The next year, 2018, opportunity opened for Hampden to host regional dispatch with East Long Meadow, meaning that our police station, a brand new building, we used to host police dispatch. We would be providing dispatch services for the town of East Long Meadow. And the town overwhelmingly approved the budget to do that at the annual town meeting on May 14th of 2018. This initiative fell apart in the 11th hour. I've never been given a clear reason as to why. I suspect it was some personality conflicts. Regional dispatch discussions came up again in 2020. Multiple residents asked for the formation of a regional dispatch committee. That was denied. Thus, we formed our own committee. There were 4 of us got together, formed a regional dispatch committee to try to study and understand things and present stuff to the public. On November 18, 2020, a petition signed by 135 Camden voters was presented to the Board of Selectmen asking for this warrant article, the one that asks for them to make a decision contingent on a town meeting. Those wishes for forming a committee were denied. There was no urgency for this decision. The exact same decision could have been made and the paperwork submitted to the state with everything contingent upon town meeting, or the exact same decision could have been made a year from now because the state grants are ongoing. Or the selectmen could have convened a special town meeting, which at one point in time was discussed by the board. There were unexplored options. Ones in the East Long Meadow are extremely unhappy with Westcott. Thus, there was the opportunity to open discussions with each or both of these towns to explore again, Hampden being the regional center. The selectmen didn't pursue this, and they gave no authority to an independent appointed committee to do so. In my 40 years of working with the town of Hampden, including the Conservation Commission, the Advisory Committee, and the Board of Selectmen, I've served on each, I have never seen a major decision made without a full study committee and some sort of town meeting input. I know that the selectmen have to make tough decisions, and they don't please everybody, and they can't please everybody with those decisions. I've been there. This decision, however, should not have been made unilaterally when doing so was not necessary. They could have come to a town meeting, presented their information, and sold their idea at the town meeting. This motion tonight is not to reverse the decision. That can't be done. This motion is to have a vote on the record that makes it clear that the voters of the town want input on major decisions like this and do not want the Board of Selectmen in the future to act unilaterally on these types of decisions.
And any questions, any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Thank you. I know it's getting late. I'll beg your indulgence. This has been an ongoing discussion between several different boards of selectmen over the years. Yeah, I want to address two particular points. Number one is about community input. This item has been on the selected agenda for over a year and a half. We've discussed it an innumerable amount of times at our meetings. There's 13 newspaper articles in the various newspapers. We posted over 70 documents on our website for people to look at to comment on. At the behest of Mr. Smith, we held a Zoom public forum, not the best thing, but we held a Zoom public forum. And we came to the conclusion that it was important, that it was for the town of Camden to do this at this time, because we had an opportunity to merge with Wilbraham, our sister city. We make that clear. Secondly of all, as far as the police stations all across the Commonwealth, in smaller towns, in the same position we are. There will be someone there during the business hours to do the paperwork and that type of thing. The door will be, people will be able to enter this police station in the evening at any time. The door could be locked behind them. They will be monitored with a camera. They can speak to an officer by pushing a button. As soon as someone enters that room, the officer will respond to them, for whatever reason they need. This is what's happening in small towns all over the Commonwealth. Currently, there's 154 towns that are regionalized. Some of them have regionalized with as many as 23 other towns. All we're doing is consolidating with our next door neighborhood. The savings will be considerable now and in future years, and the service will be the same. The one thing I've read is that the Wilbraham Police or Wilbraham Fire will be responding. That's not a fact. The Camden Police will respond the same as they always do. The Hampden Fire Department will respond the same as they always do. Action Ambulance will respond the same as they always do.
Any other motions of discussion?
I did not vote for this motion to regionalize it with Wilbraham, but I will tell you that the process is thorough, extensive. As Mr. Davenport said, more than a year of discussions, heated debate at times. It was transparent. When I first got elected to the board, we were committed to having regular forums to present to the public what we were talking about. Unfortunately, then COVID hit, and so we only had one of those forums, but we are committed to doing that going forward. I have a website where I post everything that happens at the school committee from where I sit. And you hear, I quote some of the other gentlemen sometimes, but you hear my honest perception of what is going on. I think it is inaccurate to present this in the light that Mr. Smith has done. I think that the selectmen are dedicated individuals who always want to do the best for the town, are committed to making decisions that are in your best interest, and are always willing to listen to people. That's been my experience with them, and I would hope that it is been yours.
Any other discussion on this non-binding referendum? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your card. All those opposed? Motion carried. Sir. Is there a motion to move to adjourn? Is there a second? Is there one for second? This meeting is hereby adjourned.